Dean Henrich, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Davos Lodge, and to the many thousands of you out there that are tuning in right now from all over the world. We're now going to learn from Dean Henrich, who is the Dean of Chapman University. Dean, the stage is yours, sir.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and good afternoon, everybody. So I'm a Gen Xer, and now I'm a business school dean, but I went to college at some point in time. And back then, the path to success was pretty straightforward. You get a degree, you land a job, and then you start to climb the ladder. Now, for today's millennials and Gen Zers, it's quite a bit different. So they don't care as much about pension plans or the corner office. They care about having 3 different flavors of kombucha in the fridge at work. So it's no longer about defining success as working 9 to 5. And what I'm talking about here, this is not just a sci-fi future. This is the current reality. So what is behind this, that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit today. And I'm going to do that in the context of the so-called gig economy. And so the gig economy is transforming how we work and how we think and how we define careers. So I'm going to take that perspective today. But before I go down there, let's think about the history here a little bit about gig. So think about a jazz club in the roaring 1920s in New York City. It's smoky. You can hear the conversations. You can hear the glasses. And that was the birth of the term gig. It was these jazz musicians that were playing there. They played a gig, and this was not a long-term contract, and it was not about playing there forever, but it was a gig. And now if you fast forward to today, so basically a century later on, now the smoke is gone because of the regulation of restaurants, at least in the United States. But the gig economy is still going very strong. And you go back and you see the early 2000s, you had the emergence of Uber and DoorDash. And then it was sort of going into also white-collar areas as well. So Upwork and Fiverr, where we have a lot of people that are engaging in gigs and freelance work. So this is no longer sort of a quirky trend, but is actually something that is very, very robust in the economy. Now, so if you're still wondering, all right, what about this gig economy? Is this the real deal? So let me hit you with a couple of different statistics. And one of them is that if you look today in the United States, about 58 million people in the workforce, they are engaged in the gig economy. That's about 36% of the workforce. And in 2027, and that's not too far away, then about 50% of the American workforce will be involved in gigs in the freelance economy. So that's half of the workforce. Then you will say, well, what does the other half do? Well, those are the ones hiring the gig workers. So it's sort of, you know, the ultimate work-life balance, right? Where 50% are going to be CEOs, and then the other 50% are going to be their own bosses. And so this is sort of the new reality, and I think this is something that is very important when we think about the future of education in business schools, which is something that I sit around and think about a great deal. And again, it's no longer just about the ride-sharing business or food delivery, but these days the gig economy is everywhere. It's software development. It's the creative industry, even lawyers that are doing gig work. So I think soon it will be in every industry, it will be for every skill, and will be for every demographic. And this will have very important implications for how we define business school education. So here's the challenge for you and why it matters. So for basically over a century, business schools, there have been these factories that have been training students for the kind of jobs that would be full-time in a hierarchical structure, and it would be for the longer-term kind of engagement with those companies. And I think success metrics that we had used to be employment rates and also starting salaries. And a lot of this is changing. So I think as a result of that, business schools, we also have to change in order to accommodate this situation. Now, so here's the billion-dollar question for you, I think literally billion-dollar question, and that is, how will business schools catch up to what's happening with the gig economy? And I think it's about redefining the purpose of business schools. And I'm going to focus in particular on three different areas where I think there is an opportunity for business schools to do better, to change, and to have an important impact on students and on the society. And those three things that I'm going to talk about are going to be what I call gig economy tracks, okay? And it's going to be lifelong learning subscriptions. And then the last one, we got to mention the term AI, right? Otherwise, we cannot be at Davos. So it's going to be AI-driven career coaches. And so first, let's dive into what I call gig economy tracks. So, imagine a business school where students would no longer just write dusty term papers that no one in the end will actually read, but they would be involved in real-world projects. So marketing campaigns that will grab attention, or financial performance that would grab the attention by CFOs, or being involved in product design of products that will actually hit the shelves. So I think these are not just assignments for students. Those will be opportunities for the students to pick up a lot of different skills that will be helpful no matter where they end up working. So whether they will be working in Silicon Valley or on Wall Street, these will be important project management skills that our students, they will have. So I think that will be a very important change for the future. One question that I like to ask people is, when is the last time someone read your term paper on supply chain logistics? And probably not that recently. But to have a portfolio of different activities for our students that they can showcase, well, that's the gold for their LinkedIn profile. I think that's the direction that we need to go into. So let me tell you about a student, Sarah. And so she had a dream, and that was to run her own advertising agency rather than working for a big corporate. And so instead of going down the traditional paths of internships and so on, she started to do gigs. She started to do that when she was a student. And so by the time she became a junior in college, then she was not just a student, but she had a portfolio of different activities to showcase. And then by the time she graduated from college, and she was a senior, she walked the stage, shook the hand of the dean, and she did not have just this diploma in her hand, but she had this portfolio with a lot of different things that she had actually done. And she had learned many different things about the real world of advertising agencies. And now, fast forward a little bit, and she's thriving with her own advertising agency and having a lot of very prestigious clients. And thanks to sort of this gig economy track approach to education rather than the traditional approach. Now, I think that's just sort of the start. So the second pillar that I wanted to talk about is what I call lifelong learning subscriptions. So, if you think about it, why should a business school sort of be like, a Netflix binge where, you consume everything, you want more, but then it's over? Why shouldn't business school education be more like a Spotify playlist? So it's something that is, always relevant. It's something that you have with you, and it's something that, provide you some set of comfort. And it's sort of like this end point. The way we have defined education in the past is that you go to college, go to business school, and then there's the end point. That's it. And these days, as everyone, particularly here in Davos, knows, so much that is happening with companies, with entire industries. It's sort of happening more than my Tesla is upgrading their software, so often. And we need to have the same mindset, in my view, when it comes to education. And so wouldn't it be wonderful for students to have with them this subscription to lifelong learning? So if they're thinking about shifting in their career from, say, marketing over to more a data role, well, how do you upgrade that knowledge? And you need to brush up on your leadership skills if you're taking on a new role. Again, having access to your alma mater in the future, that is something that would be really helpful. So let me bring this idea to life. Think about Carlos, a student in accounting, and that's how he graduated. But then he wanted to go into sustainability and sustainable business. And so then, thanks to having access to the school's lifelong learning packages, he was able to take courses on ESG, and he was able to be involved in projects on, a company's carbon footprint, and learn about triple bottom line, having access to people that have been there and done it before. So that's a different way of thinking about it than what we have done traditionally in academia. Now, the last one of the three pillars is what I call AI-driven career coaches. So, imagine this, a personal coach that will provide you advice and that will mentor you 24/7, not taking vacations, not going on that hiking trip in Patagonia that, those older mentors have the time and resources to do. But this AI-driven career coach will be with you throughout your entire life. So if you need to learn a new skill, then the AI-based coach will be there. And it's not just about answering questions that you may have. It's also by being forward-looking and being able to make recommendations that are sort of looking into what are some of the skills that you need based on where you are going specifically with your career. So it's like having a sort of a superpowered mentor that will be able to guide you through and always be one step ahead. So to give this some context, let me introduce you to a student, Priya, an MBA graduate who had a lot of different gigs, but had some challenges with her calendar. The calendar was very messy. It's trying to build that chaotic puzzle, too many deadlines, too many meetings. But this AI-based career coach can then be the ultimate multitasking guru that will help out Priya to organize her life and make it a bit more smooth. I think that those are the three different pillars that I think are quite important for the future of business school education. Now, you may say, and I think that would be a fair point, what about being skeptical about all of this that I'm saying? Will this sort of water down the academic rigor that we have in business schools? And to that, I would say that it's not about watering down the standards that we have. It's about broadening the standards and making it, combining those practical skills that we need, that our students, they will need in the future, and also that together with those very basic skills on business school education. And that will further promote adaptability, building a personal brand, and so it's not about replacing that tradition, but it's about augmenting it. So the way I think about it is sort of, we have the operating system on our computers, and that we rarely change, but there are still a lot of different upgrades, and our total operating system that we have, the way we see it today on our computer, is quite different than it was 10 years ago or 2 decades ago. And I think in business schools we need to make more out of that, and we need to do that much more future-oriented. So as we're gathering here in Davos this week, and the theme is collaboration in the intelligent age, then I want to leave you with a bold vision of the future of business school education. And I think business schools, they need to evolve from being sort of factories that are churning out those degrees that may not be that relevant in the future, to instead becoming sort of a studio style that is equipping those lifelong learners with what they need in terms of their skills, not only today in 2025, but also in the future as they move ahead with their careers and as the overall economy is changing as well. And I think that's something that we have learned from the gig economy. So in my view, the future of business school education is not about the following the path that has already been laid out in the past. It's about creating your own path for the future. So I would like to thank you very much for all of your attention today, and thank our host as well. Thank you so much, everybody. Over to you.
Is it back to me? Thank you
Yes.
very much for grabbing my pen. Dean, thank you so much
Thank you.
for that. And it's kind of interesting because how many of you went to university, school? Isn't he a cool dean? Like, he's not like the guy you're afraid of, the headmaster that you're like running away. He's the kind that you want to get to know. I have to ask you, did you always know you wanted to be a dean?
I'm a first gen, so I'm the first one in my family that went to college, so I didn't even know that I wanted to go to college, and certainly I didn't know that I should become a professor. And I think no one really knows that they want to become a dean. That just happens over time, I think.
So I'm going to do a little fireside chat with you because we have a few minutes, so you can
Yes.
grab a seat. And I've said it a few times, I'm a dad. So how many here have kids? I know Professor Gabriel, we have some other kids. And as you were guiding this next generation, many of them right now, the little ones, my 14-year-old, wants to be a doctor. My 11-year-old, she wants to be a veterinarian, so a vet. How do they start? And what should parents be doing to get them ready for university? Because for those of you in business, we think we're smart. There's a lot of talented people out there.
Right.
There's a lot of smart people going for the job you want to go for. Don't believe me. Go on LinkedIn. If there's a job you're looking for, and it says, and they don't even tell you how many, 100. Over 100 people have applied. How do we get to the top of that order, Dean? How do we become the best, the one that your school says we're going to let you in? What can parents do to help?
I think embracing that mindset of curiosity, I think that's the best thing that parents they can do, because the curiosity, I mean, we've talked a lot here in Davos about innovation. We always need that. That's something that we need. I think when we went to school, then the professor, the teacher was sort of this encyclopedia of knowledge and having that information and having an edge on the information. We don't need that anymore. I mean, we have much more information than any human being has in their head. We have that right here in the pocket, right? So I think embracing that, the curiosity, and that's always my advice when I talk to parents. Then once you then get into a business school, then what we can do as a school, it's not just having someone that is standing on the stage and providing information about the topic, whether that is marketing or that is about accounting. But there's a trend, and it's been the case for several years now, about experiential learning. That's where we can really add value. That's where our edge is. Given that we have this information, how do we apply that in different companies? So we do a lot with our students. We do a lot of project-based education, do a lot of case studies. We do a lot of live cases. So I think that's, those are the trends where we're going. And I think that's so important. So those, some of the observations that I would have.
So for those that, again, went through school, you probably had some debt. Now, if you, in certain countries, maybe your debt load wasn't as high. Should that be part of the equation, that the decision of what school to go to, and how much money should an individual invest in themselves? Because that's what you're doing. People say spending, I spend. I go, but you invested in you. Yeah. You have no problem spending money on other things that give you no value.
Right.
You're investing in yourself, are you not?
Absolutely. I mean, education is an investment in yourself, in your future, and a little bit broader than that as well, because it can have implications for your entire family. So it's an investment there. Of course, the amount of the investment has gone up, but I mean, if you look at different schools and they charge you a high price, like what we do at my school, you have to ask yourself, what do you get for that? You get access to professors, so you have smaller classes. So we have a very intimate learning environment. And that is sort of cool. And that's what a lot of parents and the students that come to us, that's what they get. That improves their communication skills. Communication skills for the the millennials, and now we're having Gen Alpha that is now approaching college. Yeah, you're laughing, and you should. Because that's a different definition of communication skill than what we have, right? We say that look someone in the eye, having the conversation with them, and that that can get lost. And I think to provide that more intimate learning environment, and to do that, I think that's very important, and that will foster those communication skills. Now, while some schools are very expensive to go to, you have to counter that by raising money for scholarships, so you make more inclusive. I mean, that's what when I'm not here, spend a lot of time bringing in resources for our students. So one program that we are doing, for example, at my school, is that we're on the West Coast, and so we're far away from the Wall Street. But we have actually right now, this week, we have a group of students that are leaving our school on the West Coast to go to Wall Street in New York and learn about how to become a banker. And I've been fundraising for this program because when I don't come from any wealth, and I don't come from opportunities, but when I was 20-something years old, I wanted to become an investment banker. I didn't, then probably would be retired by now. But anyway, that's not what I did with my life, but I really wanted to. But my family would not have had the money. They wouldn't have $4,000 to travel across the country, to stay in Manhattan for an entire week and meet with all the different leading banks. So we've been raising money to now have a 100% inclusive program. If you're smart, if you have a plan for why you want to go, you can go on this program. And I think that's how the more expensive schools will have to counter the rise in the price point by providing more scholarship funding. I mean, that's how I was trained also in my home country of Sweden. I went to school at Stockholm School of Economics, which of course was a very different model, and I get that. But if you're in the United States, for the private universities to focus more on being more inclusive, and that comes with people that have done well to be able to provide your program. So anyone here that has done well, who wants to support educational programs, I'm willing to talk to you.
Now, the United States, comparing it to other countries, because you came from a system that my wife says is cradle to the grave.
Right.
The United States is much different than that, the model. Do you think the U.S., and let's talk to the camera, you're talking to President Trump and his advisors right now. How much money should be spent on education? Are we spending enough on our kids and our future?
Well, I do believe, and of course, I may be biased because I'm in the industry, but I do believe that spending money on education is one of the best investments that you can make. And I think if you look at the data, it will back that up. Both as having an undergraduate degree compared to having just a high school degree, and then even having a master's, whether that is an MBA or it's a new master's we're launching a program in business analytics about AI and data and so on, and particularly related to the entertainment industry because we're close to Hollywood. And I do believe that those are important investments, and I think that they have considerable positive ROI. But I think business schools tend to be a little bit slow for my taste in terms of changing. And not that we should, move too hastily, but I think that is something that is important. And that was part of my remarks as well. How can we, go in a different direction, and we can do more innovative things?
So I'm going to say the words because as the dean, you're probably not allowed. This old regime, the mentality.
Right.
How do you convince them that way of doing it won't work anymore? Because we look at globally. If nothing changes, nothing will change. What we know is that the world is changing every single day. So unless we change our practices, so how do you convince them to make this change?
I think leadership in academia. How much time do we have? We can talk about that for the rest of the day, right? But I think that's it's something that can be a challenge, and the system is not necessarily set up for being, immediately cutting off every single day. But I think, little by little, universities have made a lot of progress, and you have a lot of different kind of degrees and a lot of different things that you can study today compared to in the past. But still, if you look at, and we have a lot of discussions about that with my other dean colleagues and with our professors, the way business schools, so my world, the way we are sort of segmented, if you say so, is by different functions. So we have departments of accounting, departments of finance, department of marketing, and so on. And I think and that's for historical reasons, but if you think today, in today's day and age, a lot of problems in marketing are not just a marketing problem, it's also a data problem. So you need to understand data science and business analytics, and it also have implications for the financial side. So how to do a different way of sort of segmenting the entire market in the future compared to how we have it now. And I think also, if you look at the youngest generation that is in college right now, I don't think they don't think about the world the way we thought about in terms of the segmentation. Oh, I want to have a role in, marketing. No, it may be, hey, I want to work in sustainability. Well, we don't have no business school, almost no business school has a department of sustainability. So how do we then, given the structure that we already have in place, how do we cater to the demand by the students for, say, an education in sustainability, which is much more, cross-disciplinary? So I think it's both on the school side and on the student side, there are some interesting challenges.
So the journalist in me now has to go to the topic of DEI. What are the faces schools, what do you face with that? Because diversity, equity, and inclusion, well, what I feel is different than what he feels. Do we make decisions based upon people's feelings? And if so, well, then where's the line?
Well, I think, in business schools, to be able to work with people from different cultures, different countries, that's one of the advantages that we have to bring people together. One reason that people go to an MBA program, for example, is precisely for that. In most MBA programs, you get to meet with people that come from a very different background than yourself. And I think that, as if I look back myself, when I did my master's and then I did my PhD, you have this opportunity to meet with and work with people that are different than yourself. And to me, that's one way of thinking about also the inclusive dimension, is to include different kind of cultures into, the teams that you may not know too much about. But that's wonderful, and I think that is one very important role that we have in academia as well, to provide that. That's maybe a different definition of, inclusiveness than other people would have, but I think it's very important. I think that business schools in particular can play a very important role with that.
So that fine line, because you can't change your standards because you need it to be equal across, and if one group owes another group, then it's not equality. So talk about the equality aspect. How do you make decisions as a leader to make things level and equal without changing the standards? Because then you're treating one group differently and you're making decisions based on something that isn't fair to another group then.
Right. Of course, that is can be very tricky. But I think one equalizer that we talked about already is, at least, when you have a private educational system, and part of that, we have that in the United States, is about the resources. So resources, fundraising, alumni giving back, other people that are not alumni, but they just care about a particular school, by donating, by giving resources, that's a big equalizer. And that's just one of them. What we don't want to happen, at least I don't think so, is that we would have a complete equalizer in the classroom in terms of grades. And I think a lot of different universities, at least in America, we have to now put in place different policies so we don't have grade inflation, so that everyone gets an A. And it's actually, I think, it's a sort of there's a serious point here, right? So when I went to school, went to Stockholm School of Economics, then I was fortunate enough to be a straight A student, and I had a GPA of I think 4.0. Now I see students have GPAs of 4.3 and 4.5. What is that? And the more serious point, though, is that, and we have at my university and many other universities, we now have mechanisms in place that a professor, for maybe personal incentives, saying that, hey, I want my contract to be renewed, so I'm going to give everyone a high grade, and thereby, I'm going to be liked, and my evaluations are going to be strong. And that's the effect that we have to counter, and many universities are countering that. But I think it's fair to say that overall there has been a bit of a grade inflation. And I think the important thing of that is that if you're an employer, if you're a company, so now you're hiring a student coming out of a school, how do you know what they know? I feel like for my generation, for the Gen Xers, okay, well, this guy or gal, they went to this school. We have sort of a sense for what they know. And I think that has been a little bit eroded over time. And then as a result of that, what's happening is that if companies do not really know exactly what a new fresh graduate, what they know coming out of a university, that's why they have to do their own tests when they take in the student. That's new, or relatively new. I think there's many more of those kind of different tests and hurdles that the companies are using themselves now. And I think actually that will probably accelerate, and there will be even more of that in the future. Just because someone writes on their resume, they can program Python. What does that mean? Does that mean that they can download a library? Can they actually compile it, put it together? What does that mean? We don't know. So I think that this market for sort of also a third-party market, third-party verification of, what is it that someone they know. In my own field of finance, we have had the CFA designation for many, many years. And I think one reason for that is that if I know that you're a CFA, I know more about what you know than if you just say, hey, I'm a finance major from so-and-so college. And maybe a very good, reputable college. It's just not as clear anymore exactly what that needs. So I think I would forecast that we will have a lot more of those, which, by the way, will also be part of this whole lifelong learning trend that I talked about before in my prepared remarks.
So I have a friend of mine that is in the cannabis industry, very successful. He is selling drugs legally. And by the way, Big Pharma sells drugs legally too, by the way. Why is it that Big Pharma has embraced academia and vice versa? Academia has embraced Big Pharma. Yet the cannabis industry, it tends to keep at a distance.
That's a very good question. I wish I know more about the cannabis industry. Certainly in my country of the United States, where I live and work right now, there has been a lot of changes to the regulation, so I guess on that one, I guess I will have to sort of take a pass. I mean, I just don't know enough about the industry, I guess.
But is that the challenge that deans face? Because laws are changing on certain issues.
Yes.
You had a rule book, policies, students can't come in this way or that way. But now the law is saying they're allowed to.
Right. Certainly, there's always a lot of rules that are changing, a lot of laws that are changing, and we have entire teams that are dedicating themselves to making sure that we're in compliance, we just what I try to do is to innovate, come up with new programs, new ideas, and then execute them, and making sure that things also will evolve, and things change a lot over time. And we had one of the previous speakers here that we just hired, Helene Blanchette is over there, who talked about AI in higher education industry. She's heading what is called our International Business Center. This international business in 2025. When this center was created almost 30 years ago, international business meant something totally different. Today, which business is not international business? Even, the person selling, hot dogs on the corner, there is some exposure to, exchange rates or, in terms of the supply chain and all of that kind of stuff. So I think, that changes a lot, both because of regulation, but also because of other market forces. And the challenge is always in academia, how do we, how do we keep pace? And I do believe that that challenge is more important and will be even more important going forward. And I took a lot of notes about what other speakers had to say here today, which was tremendous, so I have already too many notes. But, one of the points was, I think it was Z that said about that people tend to think in a linear way, but technology may be evolving in a nonlinear exponential way. And then if that's the case, and I think that we have seen, even in my lifetime, I think we see this right now with AI. For those of us that remember the dot-com industry, which was also a technological shock, seems like similar kind of thing. So if we are going linear as humans, but technology is going exponential, how do we meet? And I think that's a real challenge for universities to be able to catch up with that sort of exponentiality. Is that a word? I don't know. English is my second language, right?
AI, because I'm interested, I never get to interview a dean, so this is really fun. Take me out. Does AI take more jobs than it creates?
Well, I think what the best we can do as a business school is that we can prepare everybody for the new future that involves AI. That is super important. I mean, one way that you will for sure losing your high-end job would be if you don't keep up with what is happening in terms of the different trends. So I think we spend, a lot of different resources on different programs and trying to bake in AI into many of our different courses. And I think that's absolutely important and critical, and to prepare the workforce for that new reality. I think it's not that long time ago when people, my professor colleagues, when they were commenting on ChatGPT, it's like, oh my God, everyone is using that to cheat. Well, I think assignments these
Is that cheating, though?
Well, so only
asking for a friend, of course.
Right. But in an academic context, so only 5 years ago, people would ask these questions. But I think the way to think about it is that some of the assignments that we had when we went to school, they make no sense anymore. To write, have someone write a term paper, 5 pages on, the Churchill's leadership during World War II, that may not, that someone can do that during the time I've been talking, we could have produced, 100 of them. But it's so that's sort of not the way to think about how we're going to test and how we're going to going to test our students. I think we should assume that people can use AI and technology, so we have to focus on those other things, whether that is, critical thinking, whether that is about curiosity, innovation, and that's sort of where we should go instead, in my view.
So prerequisites to get into your school, what are they?
Well, so to get into the school to do an undergraduate degree, of course, high school, and another challenge is that during COVID, a lot of the standardized scores have been going away. That's another way to sort of a little bit of an equalizer, and they a lot of them have gone away. It has been a lot of test optionality these days compared to before COVID. So that's also a challenge. But we don't have any requirements right now that is based on sort of AI knowledge, but I assume, I know a little bit less about what is being baked into curriculums in high schools, but I imagine that there will be more of AI knowledge and training that will happen even earlier.
All right, well, thank you so much, everybody. We have a question, Ask a Dean. That's what we're going to call it.
All right, let's do it.
Ask a Dean.
First of all, I'm in the business of helping students get into top-tier MBA schools. I also have an MBA from Harvard Business School. So, as I said, I run a business helping students get into top-tier business schools. I went to Harvard Business School myself, so this conversation was fabulous. It was beautifully curated, so thank you so much for this. My question is on your outlook on jobs, because while lifelong learning is extremely essential, the MBA is eventually a means to an end, that end being eventually that job. So what's your outlook on jobs, both in the United States, here in Europe, and what do you see as sort of the ROI for this?
We like that. We like to improvise.
Mike, please. I'm signing you up. Yeah, come on up and join us.
I think, what's your name again?
My name's Vibha. I'm from India.
Okay, wonderful. So I think that's a great question, and I think my thoughts on that one would be, jobs, jobs, jobs. That's part of the that's part of the preparation. That's part of the ultimate goal of business schools. And I think we do our school, and I'm sure your alma mater also spends a lot of resources on the preparation, the job preparation, and that's very, very important. And so there's everything from using. I talk a little bit about AI preparation, for example. And having the AI-based agents and mentoring and all of that kind of stuff. So that's one place that business schools can help creating more jobs. I was talking to a couple of our alumni the other day, and one of them was an investment banker for a relatively short period of time, so still a very young person, and is now doing a startup related to AI and career preparation. Specifically related to investment banking. It used to be when I went to school back in the day in the 1990s, then if you wanted to get an investment banking job, and I was trained in Stockholm, so the goal was to go to London and be with with the big companies. And then there was these paper-based manuals that was passed around with 200 or 400, however many, investment banking questions. Hey, you got to know these 200 questions because you will be asked them.
The Volt books also.
Right. Yeah. So this was passed around, and in the United States, we had the fraternities. They pass around these different books, right? Those days are gone. Why do we need a book? I mean, what we do need is an AI-based agent. So what this alum of ours is doing right now, they're taking as much information as possible, and they're dedicated this, not just an AI agent for career preparation in general. They're going to specialize for investment banking and finance jobs. And I think, you can train this agent with all of this. So we don't need a book to circulate. What if it gets lost and so on? But you have an agent that has all of this information, and which goes back to your point also about more inclusive. I mean, some of these efforts will also be more inclusive, because what if you're not part of that clique that controls the book back in the day because of whatever reason, but you were sort of then excluded from that. Now in maybe the future or the current reality, it may be more of an access.
So what trends are you seeing in India right now? What are they asking for?
So the trends seem to be sort of comparable globally. I feel like you touched upon a lot of these in your conversation. AI, of course, automation, same concerns. Is AI going to take away our jobs? Is AI going to lend more jobs? Sustainability seems to be sort of common thread now. You see a lot of young people just saying, hey, I want to do something green, not really knowing what that entails, not really knowing how it's implemented in organizations. So I think business school can play a nice role in sort of showing them what a green pathway looks like. There's a lot of talk about inclusion and diversity. What I really feel is like I think when you talked about the Gen Alpha and then there was sort of a smirk that went around the room, I think that smirk is it's real, right? We're all dealing with it. I deal with it when I'm talking to students. I deal with it when I'm hiring young people. So I think maybe putting in some courses for the MBA graduates, also talking about how do you now relate to the next generation, because I think a lot of us here in the room have crossed that threshold. Right. And just being able to deal with Gen Alpha, Gen X coming up next, I think that's one big piece that needs to be center stage for conversation.
Cross-generational leadership.
Cross-generational leadership.
Would someone else like to join us on Ask a Dean? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.
We have about 13 minutes left on this session. Would you like to come join us and Ask a Dean? Come on up and Ask a Dean. This is the fun part of the day. Let's give him a round of applause. Where are you from?
Seattle, Washington.
See, I love Seattle.
That's
It's a
the
very
tech
beautiful
hub right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, we met in Dubai a couple years ago.
Good to see you again.
Good seeing you.
How you been?
Great, man. How you been?
All right, so introduce yourself to the crowd. Welcome to Ask a Dean. This is we're improv, by the way. We had someone that unfortunately slipped on the ice, broke his arm, our minister, and so that gentleman, unfortunately, listening, we're thinking about you and praying for you. So he unfortunately couldn't be here. He arrived earlier. Poor guy. I feel really bad for him right now. He's in surgery. So Ask a Dean, complete improvisation.
Dr. Jamar Montgomery from Seattle, Washington. And I went to business school as well. The challenge, I went to a HBCU, a historically black college university, which is something that's kind of unique to the United States. What I'm seeing right now is students realizing that the degree isn't as important as getting the skills. Right. So how are business schools going to be adapting to providing more skills-based training and certifications versus a degree program?
I think that's a phenomenal question. I think my view on that is that I think that there is still a lot of value to having that degree. Where did you do your MBA? Which is exactly which school?
Southern University College of Business.
Oh, there you go. You know, so I think that there's still a great value to having that stamp of having a degree from a prestigious university and everything that comes with that. But I also agree that there's so much focus now, and I sort of alluded to that a little bit before when, you know, also employers, can they sort of really trust what kind of skills you have when you come from a particular school? So I also do believe that there is also a big demand for certifications. And we actually, while we are a reputable school and university, and we provide first-class education both at the undergrad and the master's level, we still encourage our students to also take certifications, because that's a third party that is also, you know, verifying that, okay, well, you say that you are fluent in Python or in Excel. What exactly does that entail, and what does that mean? And how advanced is that knowledge? And that's really helpful also for the other party, the employer that is hiring you, because then what they're looking for is the fit. Do you have the right skill? So I don't think, in my view, I don't think it's one or the other. I think universities and business schools, we have to continue to evolve, because otherwise, can you do sort of out of this smorgasbord, you know, that is out there of different certifications, can you put together your own entire degree? And I know that there are ways to do that already now, but I'm a believer that it's both. It's both the degree, and then it's also different certifications, and you know, that is part of the future.
So
That's my view.
we have one more question, and I want to bring Chris Voss up to ask a dean. Chris, this is your time for Ask a Dean.
Yeah. So the balance in leadership is making decisions based on wisdom versus making decisions based on what the market is asking for. So in the course curriculum you offer, you have to offer students what they're asking for. You have to offer the business community what it's asking for. Flip side, the wisdom that you've come to learn. And the best example I could think of was, to paraphrase Bezos, they say, how are you adapting to change, or what change is asking for? And his answer was, we don't.
Right.
We plan on things that won't change, essentially wisdom. He says people are always going to want faster service. People are always going to want better prices.
Right.
So I would imagine that's a dilemma in leadership in business school.
Well, so
how do you make that decision?
couple of
great question.
You know, it's another great question. I think you know, a couple of points that I would have on that is, on the one hand, yes, business schools and universities have to adjust to the demand in the marketplace. What is it that the companies they would need in terms of the different skills? But let's not forget, I mean, universities also are very powerful innovators. A lot of things that we can think about that are coming out of universities, technologies. And, you know, a lot of kids that have, look at Google, you know, that was created by, university students. We can just think about a lot of different innovations that are coming out of universities. So while we need to, on the one hand, we need to cater to what are the skills that companies they need right now. And we as universities and business schools, we need to prepare them for that. But we also need to have this, universities also need to have this innovation. We need to have professors. We need to have entrepreneurship centers. We just need to have this way of innovating, coming up with new ideas that no one right now have even thought about, because they are likely to come out of universities. So I would say that is one of the points. So we cannot just cater to what we need right now. We also have to let universities to be really like out there, whether there's professors that are researching things that we can say right now, oh, this makes no sense. Well, that's the whole point. You know, it may make sense 10 years from now or 20 years from now. That's why we have academic freedom among, our professors. A second point, I think that's important, it's the difference, and that also goes to your talk, it's the difference between hard skills and soft skills. So, you know, with the hard skills, of course, those, I think, training for them, I think, will become very commoditized. We can do it in an online setting, you know, how to learn how to program or how to, do accounting. A lot of that can be done I think through more AI-based or through online education. But the soft skills is about what you talk about, like that's about leadership. That's how to lead other people. And at least where we are right now, maybe we'll come back in 10 years and maybe we'll have a different perspective on that. But at least right now, I think that the leadership skills, the soft skills, is one where the human interaction and the training, and as a result of that, business schools will have an edge over AI. So we'll see how long our unfair competitive advantage, will last.
Very, very short follow-up.
A very short answer.
Where'd you get those socks?
These socks.
Can this camera zoom in on these cool guy
Okay,
socks?
all
I've been saying cool guy socks. They look really good.
Well, if you're a business school professor, you got to have dollar signs on your socks. That's the first thing. It's actually, can I even mention company names? It's a Swedish company
Sure, why
called
not?
Happy Socks.
They're awesome.
They're all over the place now, but there was a point when they were a really small, tiny Swedish company, and I've been a supporter from the very get-go of them. But in any case, thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us on Ask a Dean. Thank you so much to
Thank
my
you so
awesome
much for your
panelists,
great
Chris, my
question.
brother.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And I am proud to announce that Harry Theoharis is here, the man, the myth, the legend. And he, right now, has been through a lot this morning. So we're going to give him a round of applause as we kick this group off. And we're going to bring him up, and he's going to tell us what he's learning today. So what's that, Irene? We're good? All right. I see waving and signs and all.
Wow.
Perfect. Oh, actually, we have, okay, so if I can kick my panels off real quick. And Irene, before we begin, there's something that I need you for quickly. Irene Vantaraki, big boss of Davos Lodge, Greek House, and Monaco House. I need you to join me. There's something very special that Sir Gabriel has for you.
Well, being here last year and having seen, your incredible work, the Institute for Advanced Studies and Cooperation has decided that you are the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's not needed, but thank you so much.
Well, you made this possible, Irene. Thank you for your beautiful vision.